Hey everybody, this is Johnny Vaz there from Leonard Skinner. You're watching Directions of the Heart with Mike Aloia and Pete DeLorenzo. On American Hearts Radio.
When the lights come down and I leave the stage, it's you that makes it all worthwhile. When the lights come down and I leave the stage, it's you that makes it all worthwhile.
Here, Mr. Rand Campbell is going to blow your mind with his story and his testimony.
What is his name? Rand? R-A-N?
Yeah. Yeah, Rand Campbell. Can you see him?
Yeah, I can. It's an honor, man. Honor and a pleasure.
My pleasure.
And, you know, to have you come on last minute, it's indeed a great honor. And on behalf of Mike and Bruce.
Yes, thank you, Rand.
We really appreciate it.
Me and Bruce have talked about having you on before. We had Oren.
Yeah, I rescheduled him, Mike. I got him down for the end of June.
Okay.
I rescheduled him for the 28th of June, so that's better that way. And now we got Rand, so this is awesome. It's going to be a good show.
Hey,
yeah,
Bruce, let us... where Bruce is going to sit in on this one, too. Bruce, go ahead and let us know when we're recording, brother.
Well, we're recording now, so...
Okay, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and bring us in.
Okay, all right, I'll ask him while we're on. Good.
You ready, brother?
I'm ready.
Welcome to the Direction of the Heart discussion series on Skype. We record our series every week, and our topic is bringing you the message of global peace through the eyes of people around the world. We get their testimonies, we get their opinions, we get their thoughts, and we get to know who these people are. We're all in this world together, and this is the Direction of the Heart. I've got my partner, Mr. Pete DeLorenzo from New Jersey. He's a great guy, man. Motion picture director, actor, comedian, and an ambassador for the United Nations with Global Cooperation Day. Pete, you're an awesome guy, man. I know. Good to see you. We've got also Bruce Shepard, my executive producer, and we have Mr. Rand Campbell. Rand, where are you from, brother?
I'm from Canada.
What's that?
Toronto, Canada.
You're in Toronto right now?
Yeah.
I do want to thank you so much for joining our discussion series. Pete, I'd like to let Bruce explain a little bit about Rand, because Bruce and Rand have been friends for quite a while, and he's got an amazing testimony in his life. Go ahead, Bruce.
Oh, well, this is Rand Campbell, and a lot of people do know him from YouTube. From what I've known about Rand, he came on really strong when he first came out to the social media. And the thing is, his heart was so passionate, you know, that things made him angry because of the stupidity of some people, what they talk about and how they put others down. And, you know, he kept his faith all the way through that. And you know what? This guy right here is one of the coolest people I know on YouTube. He's my brother in Christ, and that, you know, he's going to tell you something that's, you know, is going to change your hearts and your minds. So,
well, you had mentioned to me, Bruce, that Rand was a boxer,
right?
And you basically went through a real hard time.
More than you
a lot of insanity. Actually turned his life over to Christ. Rand, I'd like you to explain a little bit about that, about your life, sir.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys for having me on here today. I really appreciate it. I didn't know what I was going to do with my afternoon, and I was kind of sitting here working on. I'm writing a book, so I was kind of doing some editing, and then I seen this pop up, and I love these kinds of surprises. I'm not a big fan of scheduling. I'd rather be caught by surprise. And although Bruce and I have discussed doing this, this is a really, really nice surprise thing to be able to sit here with these gentlemen. I'll tell you this. when I was 4 years old, my mother killed my father in front of me. My mother was a alcoholic along with my father. They both had alcohol issues, and they had one of those relationships back in the 1960s that it was a very troubled domestic violence based relationship. And back in those days, for you young people, the type of help that we have today in today's society was not as available back then as it is now. So it obviously progressed and progressed and progressed until one night my father was accusing her of sleeping around on him. They were both drinking. My brother and I were standing on the porch, and my father was covered in blood, crawling down the street 7 houses down, where he passed out and died.
Jesus God Almighty.
Yeah. Now, that night changed everything for me. I found out recently, just through other people, that was the night that I lost whatever innocence I may have had. And I went into immediate survivor mode. And I've been in survivor mode ever since. I'm still there. I am far from out of survivor mode. So I went into this orphanage with my brother, with a bunch of other kids that had come from other situations that were equally disturbing. And I think after 2 or 3 years of being there, that was during the process of my mother's trial for killing my father. She got acquitted. My father's brother took the stand on my mother's behalf. She was acquitted of first-degree murder. So she ended up getting out of jail and back on the streets, and was sitting in a bar with a friend of hers. This is a week or two after she got out. And a man walked in the bar that looked physically identical to my father. So my mother and him started dating. And they started working on getting my brother and I out of the orphanage and to come live with them. They got drunk, and she killed him too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, she took his life. And
God, that must have bestowed. I couldn't even imagine going through something like that, brother. That I couldn't imagine the anger and the amount of emotions that my heart goes out to you, brother.
What interests my mind, Ran, and you know, I know it's a very sensitive. First of all, I want to commend you on the courage, and you know that's a painful thing to have endured and carried in your life, and you have the courage to give this testimony, and that is definitely, we can see and feel the Spirit of Christ in you, my brother, and you know, glory be to God, and that is a wonderful thing, because you see, in things like this, that testimony you're giving, it will help other people that may be going through what you did, or have gone through it, and some rise above it, and some don't, and they could carry anger, they could carry rage, and like you said, a survival mode could be in many different ways. But I salute you, sir. Because, and I have a question. Did your mom, not for anything, but did she do the murders both in the same manner that your father, and then she killed them the same way, or?
Yeah, they called her they actually called her the robot murderer, because she stabbed the same gentleman with the same type of butcher knife, 7th rib, left side of the body, and it was the same arresting officers, the same Crown attorneys, the same judges. They called her the robot murderer. It was both murders.
That's like what we might call a kangaroo court, you know. Money and the judicial system is we don't want vengeance, we want justice. And when you see things bent, twisted, and a person gets acquitted or gets off, you know, it's money in politics.
How old were you, Rand, when the second murder took place?
I guess I would have been about 6.
So you were 6 years old. Now, what turn of events happened in your life after this incident?
Well, for that 2 years, my uncle and other family members were still visiting me and my brother in the orphanage. Now, I didn't find this out until many years later. But when my mother killed the second man, she ended up pleading guilty. She had just decided that she had become a monster, and she didn't remember killing the second man. It was a complete blackout. So she just decided in her mind that she was supposed to be convicted of my father's murder, so she decided the second murder was her
Do you
being
think
told
maybe
you need to go
that
to
she
jail.
had sort of like a flashback of anger, and since he looked so much like your father, that
That's a possibility.
she possibly relived that moment?
Oh, exactly. That's exactly what happened.
Was there ever any? I mean, did they just do nothing but put her in prison, or did she have any type of mental treatment that went along with this? I mean, couldn't she have just easily pled insanity?
I have no idea the details. She wrote her life story, and her book is called The Violent Years of Maggie McDonald. You can get it on Amazon.
What is the name of that again?
Violent Years of Maggie, MAGGIE, McDonald, MACDONALD. Her book is called The Violent Years of Maggie McDonald. I never read the book. That's a whole nother... Everybody keeps asking why I've never read my mother's book. That's a personal thing
Brother,
that me and God.
I imagine it would be very upsetting to rehash and recall. And at such a tender young age. Now, your dad, you were just like a baby, an infant, right? If you were 6 when the second murder took place, how old were you when your dad was murdered?
4.
Wow. So within a 2-year ratio,
Within
you
2 years.
hit it again.
Now, what happened? How did this affect you as you went into your teenage years?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Well, like I was saying, for the first couple of years, my uncle, my father's brother, was driving up to this orphanage and taking us out and buying us toys and trying to continue in our lives. And I didn't find this out until many years later. He wanted to adopt us, but they were told after the second murder that we were unadoptable. And so we remained.
Wow.
Yeah, they said that we were unadoptable, and we remained in that home for many, many years. And they were told never to come back and see us again.
So that was like insult upon injury, because that just hurt even more. That hurt.
God almighty.
So, I mean, throughout your, past your teen years into your 20s, tell us about, how things were working out for you as an adult.
Well,
past your teen years.
I was thinking, Bruce, you said that he got into boxing. Was that the way that you triggered your anger? Was through boxing and fighting?
Well, let me just get you to how I end up on the streets, because one more. So I'm in this home with my brother Edward until I'm 14, so for 10 years. And I was a bad kid. I mean, I did some things that were probably... I wasn't the best kid in the home. Let me just say that many years later, I took a friend of mine to that home. They had a wall with over 500 pictures of different children. And the woman said, I want you to find the worst kid I ever had here. And the person I was with was smart enough to know she was probably talking about me. So she picked me out of all the pictures. And the woman said, yeah, he was the worst kid we ever had. So keeping that in mind, one day I'm getting ready I'm sleeping, and it was a school day. And I wake up to find the entire house is empty. All the other kids are gone. And so I go to my drawer to get clothes, and all my drawers are empty. And I notice a chair with a pair of pants, socks, underwear, and a t-shirt. So I put them on, I go downstairs, and I see these boxes at the front door of the house. And finally they come out and they say, yeah, sit down and eat your breakfast. So I ate my breakfast. Then they told me to put all the boxes in the van. I put them in the van. They drove me to Toronto and put me in a group home and told me that I wouldn't be coming home. And I was like, well, what about my brother? And they said, you won't be seeing him again.
Wow.
And so...
I don't mean to interrupt. On that note, and forgive me, I don't mean to be personal, but no doubt, after going through something like that at such a young age, did you find at that time, which would only be human, any human being put through something like that, did you feel bitterness, anger, rage, or just like confusion and trying to put it all together?
Not on the surface, no. Okay. It was in me. It wasn't. You would have never. I'm a pretty comedic guy. Like I like to tell jokes.
So you were holding a lot in. You were holding it all in.
Oh yeah, I put it behind I created two people. I created the one that I gave you and the one that I dealt with in my own head.
Right.
And yeah, so from there, I ended up in a group home, and then I went through several other group homes. I got to this place called independent living, where they're supposed to teach you how to become an adult and prepare you for life. And they forced me to go get a job. So I got a job at a summer camp where I was away all summer. And when I came home, they had kicked me out of that group home because I passed the age, and put all my boxes on the street, and I ended up on the streets.
And you were how old at that time?
16.
16. And they throw you to the street.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
How did you survive, Rand?
Well, I hooked up with all the wrong people. That's how I survived.
Drugs,
Yeah.
women.
I was a young punk, but I had a lot of heart. And I started hanging out on the street doing this thing called stinging. Back in the day, it was when you sold fake drugs. So you would pick up some tar off the ground, roll it up, put it in some tin foil, and call it hash, and rip off people on a Friday night as they were coming to buy their party drugs. And that's how that was one of the things that I learned. So I learned how to be a con man and how to be a hustler. Then I learned how to sell real drugs. Then I became a pimp. Then I became a robber, a thief, and an extortionist. I got into boxing through a friend of mine that was in the... he was a serious criminal, I'll just say that. And he kind of mentored me, and we used to go collect money with him. And he got me involved with some Italian guys in the gym where I was boxing and did the amateur circuit. But I was more of a criminal using that as a place to kind of get out my anger. And the person that mentored me has since passed away, but he basically taught me how to be a serious criminal. So I ended up in the streets as a very well-known criminal. I wasn't, I took it very seriously.
And your boxing career, were you middleweight, heavyweight?
Oh, I was a welterweight back then. You wouldn't know it to see me today. I'm busting a good 260 right now, but back in those days, I was about 170 pounds, but I was in really, really good shape. And
still box now, or are you retired, or do you still box?
Yeah, I go to the gym. I mean, I hit the bag, and I'm training a guy right now. I got a young fella. I was down at the gym hitting a bag, and he was blown away. He's like, "Wow, you're fast for your age." And he asked me for some tips. Now all of a sudden, somehow I'm training him for free.
That's great.
Him and his girlfriend.
That's beautiful. You know what, Rand? I tell you, man, your story is mind blowing. I mean, have you thought about writing a book?
I'm 8 chapters into it.
Yeah, you should do a film.
I think a screenplay should be written.
I'll do a film on it. I think that's a testimony and a half.
I think that's an unbelievable movie, and I know there's a lot more. There's a lot of substance to your life and your experiences, and the thing that really not fascinates, but it warms my heart that everything that you've endured. I mean, I've endured a lot in my life. I was a drug addict. I was homeless. I grew up around violence, but I never had to experience the level of things that you have been through. I grew up with bikers. You know, I was a criminal. I've done time behind bars, but what you've been through, I believe, would be a very powerful movie.
And I mean, I'm serious. That, you know, as a screenwriter, producer, director, I would have to sit down with you and take it all down for writing it for screen. But I think that is a testimony that should be shared with the world. On the note of what I said earlier, that this could help other people that may be going through similar or what you've gone through or have gone through it. And for sake of point, and I'll make it short. When I was casting for my film, Mike, I don't know if I ever told you this one. I'd like to share with you, Ron. I was all guys reading for that particular scene. And young fella, he was Hispanic, pulled me on the side. Tears welling in his eyes. He says, "Mr. DeLorenzo, can I say it off on the side?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And he looked at me and he says, "You know, what this film is about that you're doing," he says, "and I want you to know I'm not kissing up for a part. He says, but what this film is about, what you're about, and everything." He says, "This really touched my heart." He says, "I don't care if I'm a dot on the screen or I have to sweep a floor or go for a gaffer, but I love what this is about, and I want to be a part of it in any way I can. He says, I want to tell you that, and he got choked up. He said, the only recollection I have of my dad was trying to throw my mom out of a 4-story window, strangling her because he was an alcoholic and a druggie. And this kid was working 4 jobs to support his family, brothers and sisters, and his mom. And I said to him, you know what, young man? I says, you are going to be a good father, and you're going to be a good husband. I said, because watch this. You could have turned out to be just like what your dad was like, but you didn't. You see, you rose above that, and God gave you the strength to say, oh, I'm not going to be mad at the world, I'm not going to be bitter, or here was my example, my dad, so I'm going to be just like the old man, chip off the block. You said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that to women. I'm not going to live my life like that. I said, God bless you for that. I said, so you see, and there are times where people don't. They get angry, they get bitter, they get rage, and this is why some people go out and, do crimes and murder and things like that, because they were scarred young age. So back to you, Ron. I salute you, because you see, you didn't do that. You brought a lot in from what you're saying, but you didn't go out and mistreat other people. Yeah, you might have did a little conning to turn a buck to survive and things like that, but you didn't maim or hurt anyone. You see, you didn't go and murder people and do like what your mom had done or other people do, and that could have been the case. So I give you, God was working in your life.
Absolutely. And what was that moment, Rand, where you realized where you felt the presence of Christ?
Well,
when Christ
I don't think he's quite finished with telling his story yet. There's a lot more.
Well, we're going to keep going out special then with this.
Well,
yeah, so I had reached a pretty high pinnacle in the criminal world in Toronto.
How high? Give us an example.
Well, I'll simplify it by saying that when the police wanted to arrest me, they would get a hold of people that knew me and ask them if they could convince to turn myself in. They would prefer not to have to come deal with me.
You're in like Goodfellas type status.
And not to be too personal, but would you say, you don't have to get explicit, would you say it was above like misdemeanors and things like that? It was like more serious crimes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't like dealing with me, to be honest with you. They put task force out on me. The last time I got arrested, I ran into somebody in one of those crack houses, and he owed me some dough. And he was trying to hide from me. When I came in a crack house, he had his ball cap, put it over his head. And I was in the crack house with this other guy. And I kept looking at the dude with the ball cap. I was thinking, I got this feeling that I know this guy. So I took my gun out, and I tipped his hat off with the gun, and I looked at him. And he literally crapped himself right there. Like, I mean, literally.
I would have too.
Yeah, he owed me some money.
wow.
And he started shaking and shivering, and I put the gun in his mouth. Then I asked him, if he was able to give it to me now, because there isn't going to be a second time.
Now, could I ask you, at that point, when you did that, were you conscious of what you were doing, and was it like, because the mind is tricky, and the mind can tell you,
Well, I had been on drugs for 3 days, so
that was the drugs. Yeah, the drugs can.
It was a different me at that moment.
Well, with that
it was
kind
a
of drug, you don't realize consequences. That you just want
Right.
more of it.
The dark side was more dominant at that point than this is the real Rand, and I could clearly see, what went down. Yeah, because of the drugs and everything too. Because it plays tricks on your mind.
Yeah, and I was already. I mean, at that point I had lost everything. I had lost most of the respect that I had. The only respect that I had left were from people that feared me.
Yeah.
And that's not respect.
I tell you what, Rand, you're bringing back and surface some memories. I blocked a lot out, a lot of those dark moments. I was at places where I didn't need to be, dealing with people I didn't need to be dealing with. I got to a level to where that power, the money, the dope, going on my 4, 5, 6, 7. I went 9-day binge one time. You know, the girls that I was tricking out, they were worried for me and had to put me to sleep. I was wild. I was out of control. I had a guy that was feeding me the butter. Okay? Anything I wanted. He'd pop a cap in somebody's head on command. I was to that level. I felt the devil inside me. I felt myself changing. The drugs had such a hold of me, it was turning me into a monster. And that was a moment that scared the shit out of me inside. I may have been Mr. Tough Guy on the outside.
You were going over to the dark side deeper and deeper.
Yeah,
right?
it's almost the same thing. Yeah.
But you don't, you see, I don't believe you go there. I think it takes you there.
Yeah, it can. Exactly. Ren, I was just going to say something.
It alters you.
You said something.
Yeah, I didn't want that. It wanted me.
Right. But, you know, see, and God gives us a free will, and it was pulling you. Because, you know, and then we can fight it, or we can yield to it. And that's what I was saying. You said something very profound. And I'm not playing psychiatrist or psychologist here, but the testimony, the amazing testimony that you gave, sir, it has to touch people's hearts and minds that look at how you were treated from 4 years old to 6-year-old and then thrown to the streets, and people could get bitter, they could get in with the wrong peers, and pressure, and just a fight for survival and say, well, I tried doing it the right way. No one showed me any love. No one showed me any respect, so hell with it. I'll put a gun in somebody. And that's how and you know, and your pain was gone to the dark side, but look at what came through. And this is what Jesus does in our life.
Well, you know how some people say that...
Apostle Paul was persecuting Christians, and he turned around, okay? Moses killed an Egyptian, okay? David had Uriah, his best friend, put in the front lines, murdered so that he could lust and have Bathsheba. So we see countless examples in the scriptures where, hey, they screwed up, but they repented.
You know how some people say they don't believe in demonic possession? Well, being addicted to drugs, I can tell you that was the most demonic possessed part of my life, period. And I think drugs are just, you know, the gateway for a demonic type possession. That you don't care about anything around you or anybody else around you but yourself, and you're completely drawn into getting your next fix, and you don't care about the consequences of breaking the law.
The thing that fools us, is we think we are stronger than it.
Right.
We think
that's the illusion.
That's the illusion.
Oh, bro, I was Superman. Are you kidding me? Come on, man.
Iron Man, baby.
I'm very honored. I say this humbly, not egotistically, that in my family, I know family's picture perfect, but I had good stability in my home, and there was always God, and I never did any drugs. I have a drink once in a while. So, you know, I mean, coffee and cigarettes is my habit. But what I'm getting at is that, you know, the drugs, the alcohol, any one of those things can mess the head up. It can do damage to the mind, see, and the mind doesn't think clearly anymore, not rational, and the abnormal becomes normal, and this is why decision making or leading just a productive life, sometimes it gets thrown off kilter, but to rise above it, such as you did, Bruce, such as Mike did, and Ran, I mean, my God, you know, this was God working in your lives, and he works in all our lives if we let him in.
Absolutely.
Thank God that you came away from the dark side to the light, because you could have went deeper and deeper.
What made you feel the light and start doing backflips like John Belushi and the Blues Brothers?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I ended up getting pinched on that particular set of crimes. There was extortion, guns, threatening death, home invasion, robbery, a slew of charges. And I was so out of it that I sent one of the guys to the store to get me some smokes and some lighters. We had tons of dope. I was like, oh, look at you. Go to the store and get me some lighters and some cigarettes. This is how insane I'd become. I thought that people were so afraid of me they wouldn't call the police. Well, when he was gone, he took a while. And when he came back in the door, I was looking at him. I was thinking something ain't right about you. I had already had other guys sitting here shaking because I told him he wasn't going to leave there today. And so the whole place was already under this spell of fear. There was a girl there. She pissed herself. You know, this guy that I came in with, he had no idea what. He didn't even know I had a gun. He was completely outside of himself in fear. And dude came back in. I was surprised he came back in after I thought about it, but he came back in, and I was looking at him. I was like, something ain't right. So I said to the dude I came with, I said, we got to get out of here. He goes, what are you talking about? He says, I'm not going. I said, okay, well, I'm leaving. So I grabbed my stuff, and I left the house. And when I walked out the door and I was coming up the staircase, it was an apartment building. And this was on a below-level, ground-level apartment. I come up on a staircase, and two task force cops with their riot gear and their M16s with the mirrors on the end of them were coming down the stairs. I actually walked right in between them. Our shoulders touched on the way out. And so I get outside, and I'm thinking, okay, where I'm going to go left. I already know the cops are surrounding the building. So I'm thinking, okay, how do I get out of here? So I decide to take a right. Next thing I hear is all these guns cocking, and a bunch of cops behind cars, and a school bus was there, and there were about 50 cops out there. And they had me surrounded, and they were yelling on bullhorns to get on the ground, get on the ground. At that point, I was ready to die. I didn't care. I was honestly, I was ready to die. But something made me reach into my pocket, throw the dope, and next thing I knew, I got a heel kick in the back from one of the two cops that went in the building. And I ended up on the ground, and they had me surrounded. They had the guns to my head, handcuffed, and they had me in the middle of the street. They had the streets blocked off, and they had me up against the wall. And I just had this moment where I was like, I felt like I wasn't even arrested. I was being rescued. And I thought,
I know that feeling. I know that feeling.
Yeah, man, I wasn't being arrested. I was being rescued. So now I'm in the back of the cruiser, and a cop goes, "You're a lucky man." I go, "Yeah, I feel lucky, bro." He goes, "No, you have no idea. We've been looking for you for 3 days. We were going to kill you. We were deciding. We had a pool on which cop was going to take you out because they already knew I was running around with a gun." And I said to him, I said, "Well, you don't have to stop here. Let's go into an alley. I'll make a fake escape and shoot me in my back as I'm running down the alley." He goes, "No." He said, "You're lucky the task force got involved because you were dying this week." Wow. And I ended up in a joint. And here's the changing moment. This is now about 6 months earlier. I was in jail too. I'm not going to get into the whole story. It's really long. But 6 months before that, I had only been out 6 months. And on the previous time that I was in a joint, I beat the charges because the witness died. He ended up doing a drug overdose and couldn't make it to trial, so all my charges got dropped on that particular set of charges. Wow. And so I was back on the streets. And now I get this arrest that I'm telling you about, and I'm sitting in a Don jail. I'm 148 pounds, and I'm in a medical rain because I look like I'm dying. And all of the coppers and everybody were crying. They were looking at me crying. They're going, "Oh, Lee, wow, if you ever come down, look at you. You look pathetic, bro." And I was laying in my cell, but much earlier when I was in the other time, I was talking. A friend of mine said, "Hey, you want a broad to come bring you some dope?" I'm like, yeah, I need. So he's like, "Okay, I'm going to hook you up with this girl." So I was calling this other girl, and the Bell Canada operator, and I started talking. And she had a real cute voice, and she was funny and witty. So in between placing the call, I convinced her to give me her phone number. And then we started talking. I ended up getting out, and I lost contact with her. But when I got rearrested on this time, I was laying in the medical range. I was asking God to take my life. I was laying in bed and I said, "I don't know if you're there, God. I don't know. Like, I really don't know if you exist. I don't know what's going on, but if you exist, just take my life. I got nothing to live for. Kill me. I'm done. I got nothing left.
See, now,
I can't do it."
That was one of the things I was going to ask, not to interrupt. At any given point, for our viewers, for maybe young people, or people going through what you went through, it might be very therapeutic to them. At any given point, the word conscience comes to mind. Did your conscience bother you, or that was seared? In other words, you were just, I don't care anymore, and for you to say, "Lord, just take my life," or some people even try to take their own life. So at any point, was there, though, you were conscious, you knew things that you were doing that weren't right, but did you have a conscience? Did it bother you inside? Or it just was made you numb?
I was numb, bro. It didn't. What I was sick of was me. I wasn't sick of the things I was doing. The last thing that I wanted in that moment was a mirror that I would have to look at myself. I wasn't thinking about the people at that point. I wasn't thinking about all the people I'd hurt.
Well, you were robbed of your self-esteem, from early.
I was done, bro. I was done. I was 148 pounds. I remember when I was in a joint, I called a buddy of mine, and he's like, "How It's like at 11 o'clock at night. He's like, how are you on the phone at 11 o'clock at night? I thought they shut the phones off at 9. I go, come on, man, you know who I am. He goes, oh, yeah, that's right. You get a lot of respect in there. I go, yeah, of course. He goes, well, that's good because you're not getting any out here. So that was one of those moments. But so here I am laying in this cell, 148 pounds, ready to commit suicide, asking God just to end it for me. I was done, bro. I was like, I can't do it. I even if I were to miraculously get out tomorrow.
From what all of this testimony, you think about it, that as a professional fighter, you were taking blows, you were taking hits, you know, and I mean kidney punches from life. Life that, be that as it may, sometimes throws us curveballs, and it's not always fair. But you got dealt a really bad hand of cards, and I got to again salute you, so that you rose above.
Hell with a curveball, man. This guy got hit in the head with a bat.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, what the hell didn't hit him? I mean, I salute you, Ron. That, you know, God.
No, it's all Jesus, bro. It ain't got nothing to do with me. You know that. I'm a weak man. Believe me, bro. I'm gonna show you how weak I am.
How did you see Jesus? When?
Mike, I gotta interject. None of us are so strong.
Yeah.
None of us are so strong.
Yeah.
One
Just
was
remember, it's good that you humble yourself.
But guess what? It's the weak that he calls to work for him. Moses said, oh, well, how will I go to Pharaoh and ask for people to be freed? Noah, yeah, right, okay, yeah, building on, you know. Abraham, oh, yeah, take my only son and bring him up to a cliff and sacrifice. So, you know, he molds our character, and he makes the weak strong. And he knew you. Though at the time, all the hell that you were going through, God was working in your life, and you heard the call. Your life turned it around, and you're not weak, sir. God made you strong. God.
Well, I'll tell you what, I felt pretty weak that moment, and I was laying there on that cell bed, and I was asking God to kill me. I was just saying, look, I don't care if you give me a life sentence. I don't even know what I've done. I have no idea the crimes that are coming, the charges that are coming. As a matter of fact, for the next 2 years, I kept waiting for more charges and more charges. But I was laying there, and the coppers started calling my name. My fight name back then was Ace. That was my street name. Everybody called me Ace. So the copper had walked up 5 flights of stairs to give me a message from somebody that had called in. And I'm laying on my cell asking God to kill me. And I hear Ace, Ace, Ace. So I open my eyes and I'm crying. And I look at him. He goes, holy, you look terrible, guy. He said, you don't even look like the man I know. What is going on with you? And I said, nothing. What's up? He goes, here. Somebody called him and wanted to know if you were here. So here's the message. And he hands me this little sticky note. And I look at it, and it's my Bell Canada operator. So
it was what?
I'm laying on the Bell Canada operator that I had spoke to a few months ago. I was calling another woman. The Bell Canada operator gave me her home phone number. And we lost track of each other.
She was an angel.
Yeah, so, well, we're going to find out if she's an angel. This story gets good. Don't forget, I don't have a lot of luck with women, right? I'm not like Bruce. I didn't get a good one.
That's right. Kind of luck we got is if I went into the hat manufacturing business, babies would be born without heads.
Hey, I had my problems with women back when I was in my 20s, and I never thought I'd actually get to the point to say that, but I decided that it's better to stick with one crazy one instead of a whole slew of them, which is going to cause you problems all the time.
You got a great
one. Well, you know, the Bible advocates that. That's why the Bible advocates that. A good woman, one woman unto thy, you know, to your life is a virtuous woman, and you don't need more than one, and they're not supposed to be more than one.
Well, I don't know. Abraham had 500 wives and 700 girlfriends.
I'm very honored that God blessed me with trust.
Well, I believe the Lord spoke to me in my heart, and I asked him, you know, what am I supposed to do, Lord? You know, what am I supposed to do? I went to God in prayer. You know, what am I supposed to do, you know, with my life from here on? And the only thing that came to mind.
See, it's right there, though. That was the breaking point of you turning to God and saying, Lord, what do you want me to do?
The only thing that came into my heart at that time, into my conscience, is was 3 words: cling to, or 4 words: cling to your wife. And that's the only thing I could say that if I were to say if God ever spoke to me, I would probably say I think that was God, because that made sense.
Well, I tell you what, man. You know, I was married 20 years. I was with a girl for 3.5. Love is the most powerful thing in the world. It's the most beautiful thing when you have a woman you're on the same page with, and you got that trust and loyalty. I tell you, brother, your story is very compelling, Rand, and I've had an amazing experience just speaking with you. You actually touched my heart and it hit home in several different areas, because, like I said, I've lived kind of not as high level, but it's all life in the fast lane. And me and Brand were talking earlier before we got started the discussion of, you know, I was sitting here thinking about, you know, our whole message is global peace. And, you know, peace is not just on the outside world. There's also inner peace that we have to tap into. And I can see you, Rand, that you do have that inner peace and that humbling in yourself. And I think that just comes with the age and the wisdom of the heart.
Yeah, and you know, look at the trials that you went through, but you see, you have that inner peace now. A question I might want to ask is that, tell our viewers when and what was the turnaround, the breaking point of where you found the Lord and turned to the Lord. At what point?
Okay, so I'll say that I'll just skip 18 years and tell you that
Wow.
me and that Bell Cannon operator got together when I got out. And I turned away from crime. I got involved in the sales industry and found out I'm a pretty good salesman, and spent the last 18 years with her. We're not together today. We broke up just over a year ago. But 4 years ago, I was involved with some business associates in the promotional industry that stiffed me for about 10 G's. And the old me came out. Because when I started business with these guys, they had said that they had heard about my reputation. And they said that they were a little bit leery in doing business with me, because they said that they had heard I'm very slick, and that at some point I could take them for everything they've got.
See, they were judging you by your past. See, that's not right.
Yeah. Well, so I looked at them, and we're in a big business meeting, and they said, "Is that going to happen?" I go, "Yes, it's going to happen." And they were like, "What?" I'm trying to sell myself to these guys in a business agreement, and they're telling me that I'm going to end up robbing them from what everybody's telling them. And I said, "Yeah, I am." And they said, "What? What do you mean you're going to rob us?" I said, "Well, I'll even do better than that. I'll tell you exactly when it's going to happen." And they said, "Okay, when?" I said, 10 seconds before you think about robbing me.
Wow.
And they looked at each other. They looked at each other. Oh yeah, they looked at each other, looked back at me, and said, "Okay, you got a deal. Let's do this." Because I think they realized that, yeah, I will do what I got to do, but if and when you do what you're not supposed to. So if you try to stiff me, I got the tools. I'm coming for you, and believe me when I tell you, I'm going to get you before you get me.
You also got to look at the fact that they were provoking you. And two wrongs never make a right, but they were provoking you, and that's what was starting to bring the past and the old you back in focus. But so the woman that you were with, are you still friends with her? You still at least talk?
No.
Well, I mean, she was in a way was she instrumental in leading you to God, or?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well,
that's a whole other story.
Tell us about, recently when you did come to God, and
that's what
I know there's some not so great things that recently happened, but when you first realized that you had to make a change overall.
Well, here, let me take you to these 2 Italian guys that did end up trying to stiff me. Well, they did. They took me for some money. But I caught the play coming about 2 weeks in advance, and I said to one of the guys I was dealing with, I said, "Something ain't right." And I showed him a few things. He goes, "Well, you got a good eye." I go, "Just watch. They're planning something." And I said, and when somebody's trying to plan something, when somebody's trying to do something to you, you'll see a change in character, or you'll see a change in procedure, because they're focusing on what they're not supposed to be focusing on. So you'll see something change about them. And sure enough, things started to change. And one of the big things is that they had somebody else sign a check for me that never ever signed a check in the year and a half that we were doing business. All of a sudden, somebody new signed a check. I said to my friend Skip, I go, look at, you see that right there? They're doing something, bro. So I immediately went to another office I had where I had millions of dollars in files. And I went and I took all the files out and I had them relocated. And then that was on a Friday night. And then on the Sunday, I got a phone call from the police asking me to return the files. I go, you're not getting anything. And I said, what are you talking about, return the files? They said, well, we got so-and-so and so-and-so here, and they claim you stole files. I go, first and foremost, those are files I brought to the business. They weren't files that were there before I got there. They're my files. And I said, if you can get them on a phone, put them on a phone and tell them to tell me they were their files. And they told the cop that they weren't their files. And they were kind of stiff. So they ended up, that check that they wrote bounced. That's where they owe me that money. So my bank calls me on the Monday or the Tuesday and said, yeah, Mr. Campbell, that check you brought in here on Friday bounced.
Do you think they were trying to get you for forgery by somebody else signing the check?
I don't know. I don't know what. Yeah, I think what they were trying to do was take the onus off themselves. They tried to, that $10,000, instead of it making it look like they were the ones in error, they made it look like this woman was in error that had nothing to do with her, and I were not in business. It was him and I.
But they did the forgery.
Yeah.
Did you go to seek revenge?
Well, here's what happens.
They were setting her up to take the fall,
Yeah, so here's what happened. So now, for the last 6 months, a buddy of mine, a Christian friend of mine, Cal, had been coming to my house and hanging out at my pool and talking about the Lord. And all my other buddies would come over and be like, rolling their eyes, go, what do you got this guy here for? Why is this guy talking about Jesus all the time? Can we get rid of him? And I'm like, no. It's my friend. I like him talking about Jesus. It's better than that. You know, you guys talk about the same crap every time you come here. Go in a pool, barbecue a steak, have a beer, do whatever you're doing. I want to talk to my friend. I like the way he's talking. You know what I mean? And I said, because nobody talks about the Lord to me. Everybody was talking about other stuff. And I wasn't a Christian, but I was like him. And so I had decided that on this Friday night, I'm going to go down and ball with these two guys. So I put some bail money together. I knew I was going to have to get some bail money. And I put a bat in the back of the truck. And I had scheduled, Friday night. They're generally walking out the front door of their business about 7 o'clock at night. And I arranged that I had somebody who was going to come down with me to take my truck back, pinched. And I told them, just let me off at the front of the building. You guys go ahead and hang out at the back. I'm not even going to try to escape. I'm just going to ball bat them and just wait for the police. And so with that, it was already arranged. It was already going to happen Friday night. And so Wednesday night, my phone rings, and it's my buddy Cal, the Christian guy. And he says to me, he says, Rand, what are you doing Friday night? I go, I'm busy. Why? He goes, what do you got? What are you doing? I go, I got a business thing I'm doing. He goes, can it be postponed? I go, no. Why? He goes, well, I got something I want you to do with me. I go, no. I got to go take care of something Friday night. I said, I got to go do something. He goes, well, I already bought you a ticket for a Promise Keepers meeting in Toronto. I go, who are the Promise Keepers? He goes, that's a group of men that get together and they talk about the Lord. They play amazing Christian music. You're going to love it. I already bought your ticket. You can't say no.
Wow.
I was like, and for some reason, I couldn't think of an excuse to get out of it. I just couldn't come up with a good enough reason.
I noticed something. It's all about timing with God, too.
Yeah.
All of it, cap.
That's beautiful.
That was the breaking point. So that's what I wanted to hear. Your testimony for our viewers is
wow.
That man was an instrument and a vessel of God's love and peace.
Absolutely, God works with people, baby.
But here's how it gets good, because back in the 1980s, when I was a pimp and a drug addict and a drug dealer, there was the wrestling was huge, the WWF back in the day, and Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. Not that I was into wrestling, but my buddies were. And they always said, "Wow, you remind me of the $1 Million Man." That's who they constantly said I reminded them of. And so when Cal was on a phone with me, he said, "Oh, you're gonna like this, Rand. You're gonna like this." I go, "Why?" He goes, "Because Ted DiBiase is speaking." I go, "Who's he?" He goes, "The $1 Million Man for the 1980s wrestling." I was like, "Oh, really? That guy? He's a Christian?" He goes, "Yeah. Come down, man. I'll pick you up." And that would have meant that he would have had to drive an hour and a half to my house, an hour and a half back to Toronto, an hour and a half back to my house, and an hour and a half back home. So he would have had to spend 6 hours in his vehicle just to get me there and home again. He said, "I'm coming to pick you up Friday night." He goes, "I'm picking you up Friday night. I don't care. I don't care. You're coming. I have your ticket. No more excuses." I said, all right.
To him, brother, about you.
Yeah.
You was on his heart, man. And I tell you, do you get visions now that you turn your life over to Christ? Do you have those visions of helping others and reaching out? Does God put in those transmissions that you receive in your brain and the direction of your heart to reach out and help others now?
Of course. Because I got down at this meeting, and I was blown away. There was like 10,000 men in this building. It was in the Hershey Center, a hockey arena, and it was filled to the brim with men. And I can remember walking in, and it's like walking into a hockey game or a rock concert. And I was like, holy mackerel, this is insane. I've never seen it like in my life. And Cal was grinning from ear to ear. He was like, "You like to say?" I go, "It's different." I said, "This is all men." And we get into the auditorium area, and it's just massive with this band playing. And the band is playing some loud Christian music. But it's up-to-date Christian music. And I look around, and all these men are bobbing their heads, and they're dancing, and they're talking. And everywhere I look, people are listening to this music, and they're all just, there's so much love in the building.
Inspirational, exactly.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, this is crazy, bro. And so we listened to the music, and we were just sitting there, and then Ted DiBiase came out, and he was telling his testimony. And this is what got me. This is a huge point in my life.
Was this when you were saved?
This is the moment, yeah. So I'm sitting there, and Cal is sitting beside me, and we're both watching. He's staring at me, and he knows something's going to happen. I don't know how he knows. But Ted DiBiase is talking about how when he was a world wrestler and famous and popular, that he was a Christian. And he would come home to his wife who was a Christian. They would live that Christian life at home. But when he was on the road, he was with women and doing drugs and drinking. She done to him. And so when he came off the road on one of these occasions, she had all of his stuff put on the curb. And it broke him. And it took him weeks to get their pastor to have the two of them sit down together. And he was talking to his wife about trying to reconcile him and how he was going to change and how he was going to get right with God and do all the right things. And she said these words to him. And I swear, I thought she was saying it to me. She says to him this: "I don't think you're man enough to serve God." I thought that was the biggest punch I had ever taken in my life.
Yeah.
It literally brought me to my knees, and I accepted Christ right then and there.
Humbled you, yep.
God bless you, brother.
Well, you know, Rand, on that note, and I think back to this whole testimony that you've given, and an amazing one, and God bless you, that, you see, that was the turning point, that for every blow and every hit and every cut you took from people that, you know, mistreated you and within your own, you know, with your mom, and then, you know, thrown to the street and all of these things, and people that virtually robbed you of your self-esteem, this Christian man was there, appointed by God, and God puts people in our lives. Of course, we have to listen and hear the call. You could have easily walked away from it, but you didn't, and you humbled yourself. But you see, this was amazing that he was an instrument of God's love, and that is what this program is about with Mike and Bruce and I, and we are so honored to have you today, because this is a testimony. Again, this is real life. This is not acting. This is not make-believe. This is no stupid reality show. And a testimony like that, you just touched the heart, sir, of a lot of people today.
touch mine, man. I love
hopefully now there'll be people out there that will turn around their life just like you did, and God bless you for that, man. God bless you.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're out of time, man. And I tell you, I am honored to have met you, sir, and I hope to meet you and shake your hand and give you a big hug one day, man.
Emotion.
God bless you.
Ran, I offer this to you on behalf of Mike, as a screenwriter, producer, director. You ever want to do a film on this testimony? We'll get together. We'll sit down and we'll put that film. I think it should be made. It should be made.
Oh my God!
You know, and we can do it. You know, I will do it. You know, it could be. It doesn't have to be a documentary. It could be a movie, and you know, someone who plays you. And
it's a true story. A true story of testimony, brother. That is
a documentary where he's on camera.
More powerful
now. The testimony, or we could do it as a motion picture. You know, that offers open because I think it's an amazing testimony.
Hey,
well, God is good. God is
good. God is, and this is a message of global peace as well as inner peace. Thank God you found Christ and you've got that inner peace in your heart. And this is Direction of the Heart with my partner Bruce Shepard, Mr. Pete DeLorenzo, and Mr. Rand Campbell. God bless all of y'all.
Keep up the good work. God bless you, sir. All right, see you next week.
Rock and roll.
Peace and love.
You know, I'm not the only one in the world that's lived a rough life. I met a lot of people on YouTube in the Christian community that have had their fair share of ups and downs. But, you know, when we get right with God and when you find salvation, you take a look back at your life and you can see where God was there the whole time. It's like you walk into a room and you say hello to everybody there and God's sitting there in a chair and you don't even so much as look at him or acknowledge his presence. And then when you get saved, you look back and you realize that that's exactly what you've done, is that you spent your whole life refusing to acknowledge God, refusing to have God in your life. It wasn't the other way around. I've told people my whole life, you know, I grew up in a situation where, you know, when your mother kills your father and everybody in your life from that day forward, if they're not beating you, they're lying to you. And if they're not lying to you, they're getting rid of you. And I had that my whole life. So I ended up with some serious issues about abandonment. And I went into survivor mode at the age of 4, and I'm still not out of it. I'm still in survivor mode. And that's why I did so well on the streets. And that's why I got fight in me. Because you can't be a survivor and not have fight. But what you begin to understand is that, you know, when you're fighting God, it's a losing battle, bro. I've been in a lot of fights in my life. I don't remember losing any. Maybe a couple. But the bottom line is that, you know, we come to this place in this life where you want to tell people about God. You want to tell them about your salvation. You know, it took me a long time to get to where I am. It took me a long time to get on my knees and surrender to the Lord. And when that happened, I came on YouTube and I truly just wanted to tell my testimony. I just wanted to share my salvation with people, to let people know, look, I'm the worst person I know. Now, I know there's probably worse people out there than me. But if I had to do a list on everybody I know, I'm the worst person I ever met. And the Lord saved me. I mean, he saved me. He picked me up in a worse situation and ran me through a car wash and prepared me for salvation. God saw something in me that he wanted to use. So I figured I would get up on YouTube and let God use my life to hopefully bring somebody to the Lord, to hopefully bring somebody that maybe had a life like mine, or that was maybe on a street, or maybe having that drug addiction, or maybe having that street life, or maybe having that abandonment issue, or that betrayal issue that I have, having that trust issue, being able to trust people. And I thought maybe my testimony would be welcomed. And I got the opposite effect. The very next day after putting my testimony up, I had like 4 video responses. That was back in the day in YouTube when they would hit you with a video response. And I had like 4 video responses. So I got all excited. I was like, wow, people must like me. I didn't even know what a video response was, so I clicked onto it. And then it was atheists making fun of me. It was God mockers insulting my Lord and Savior. Now, I've never had to deal with that in this life, not as an adult. Nobody would have ever come up to me in my life and insulted me or disrespected me like I've been disrespected on YouTube. And I understand it's the internet. I'm not complaining. We all get it. And we all, learn at some point to turn it around and start playing that troll game and start insulting the atheists and disrespecting them. It became a battle. It became more about defending me than it was about defending Christ. And I had to check myself a number of times, and I don't like to do that. I don't like to have to retract what I say or retract what I do, especially when it comes to the Lord. I want people to understand that God saved my life. He saved my soul. I'm in a way better place today than I was even a year ago when I lost my wife and I lost my kids and I lost my cars and I lost my business and I lost my house. I lost everything. But I gained so much more. I mean, when you become a serious Christian and you start professing the name Jesus Christ, the people around you are going to get scared. They're not scared of you. Scared of the truth. Paul said, if I tell you the truth, would you not become my enemy? And that's exactly what happened. I walked into the ring many, many times and faced some tough opponents. It was my hands that beat them, not the truth. But here in this real world that we live in, it's the truth that beats these people, and they don't want to hear it. So if you're going to tell the truth, you're going to become their enemy, and they know they're not going to be able to beat the truth. So in the real world, they just want to walk away, and that's what happens, is you lose friends, and you lose family, and you lose people in your life. But that's good, because Jesus Christ said they hated him first. So if people are hating you, and if people are getting away from you, or people are insulting you and making fun of you because you're telling them about Jesus Christ, then I want you to know that you're doing the right thing. You're professing Christ, and that's going to hurt people. It offends people. But when you listen to the words of Jesus Christ, or when you read biblical scripture, you can't find anything in biblical scripture that he did that should be offensive by any stretch of the imagination. But he is offensive. He's offensive because he's a light that makes your darkness run. And people like their darkness. They like hiding in it. So YouTube taught me a lot of things. It taught me that the weakest of man, the biggest coward in the classroom, can grow up and get on the internet and insult and make fun of people like Rand Campbell, who on the streets, they would have never even thought to do that to me. And they probably would have never thought to do it to me if I came out as an atheist and was never a Christian on YouTube. There would have been no reason for them to attack me. If anything, they would have applauded how I attacked Christians. So this experience, when you become a Christian and when you surrender your life to the Lord, there's a price for that. And that price is paid here in the world. That price is paid here in your testimony. It's paid here in your professing the name Jesus Christ. But it's worth it. It's worth it because everything that I've lost is slowly being replaced with new. And Jesus Christ said, would you put old wine in a new wineskin? And no, you wouldn't. This is a whole new creation. Rand Campbell's a new creation. So everything new in my life is going to come from God. There's going to be no old wine in this life. It's going to be all new. And if you haven't accepted Jesus Christ, your Lord and Savior, what I would say to you is to take a second look. He came here for a serious reason. This world is not what you think it is. This world is rough. This world is deceptive. This world is evil. There's stuff going on you have no idea about. I'm not going to get into those details. I'm just going to let you know that you need to take a second look. You need to get saved. And then you need to take that salvation to your family and your loved ones. And they need to either get saved or run. They're going to do one of the two. You need to be okay with it. But I want to thank Bruce and Mike for having me on the radio show. This is a great radio show. They're doing wonderful things. and they have a plan. And I believe that plan is in the will of God. And so I just want to thank them for having me here and for giving me an opportunity to be part of what they're doing. I know it's a small part, but I appreciate it nevertheless. I really do. And Bruce has been my friend for a while. Mike and I are now friends, and Bruce's wife, Sabella, and I are dear friends, and I love her like a sister. And this is good Christian family you got here. This is good Christian family. These are really, really, really good people. These are the Lord's people. They're doing the Lord's work. They're doing the Lord's business. So I want to thank you guys.